Okay, we are 10 seconds in. We're ready to get started. Again, not using the secondary camera today because it's just a pain in the tail. But we're going to be working on sewing on our Deady bear. You can see he's got his little legs covered. We're going to be working from the back this time, and we're going to go in a spiral up and around to give him a chest and stuff. Won't take much of a spiral because, remember, we're leaving this portion here uncovered so we can see that gut bag. And we're also going to leave this part here where his guts are hanging out. We're leaving that uncovered too because we want that gore factor. Now, I'm not going to do much towards stripping these loose thread ends because most of them are going to be on the inside of him, so it shouldn't be a huge issue. If I need to, I'll work on that then. But let's go ahead. We're going to get started. This way. But I want to go this way. Okay. Let's go right here. Is he going to look great, amazing, perfect? No. But that's not the point of him. It's okay if he doesn't. He is supposed to look kind of grim and gruesome because he's a Deady bear. Remember, the goal is to make him look like whichever parent's first attempt at making a plush toy for their kid, and they had the oh so brilliant idea of doing so by starting with an actual skeleton of the animal. So we are perfectly okay with him looking pretty heinous. Okay. Alright, so I just wanted to get that started the first. Oh, hey. The fabric tore loose, so I get to do those again. Fun. Get over here, you bastard. Apologies for me cursing at the project. That's just something I do when it is misbehaving. I mean, who doesn't curse at their yarn, thread, whatever crafting supply they're working with? A person with far more patience than I have for misbehaving products. That's who. I have zero patience for misbehaving. Well, no. I can't say zero patience, but I don't have nearly as much patience as I do for, say, misbehaving people. Misbehaving people, I'll generally be like, okay, so what's causing this? And try to sort out how to deal with it without, like, just accusing the person of being bad. Crafting supplies don't get that leisure. So, okay, there we go. That's a bit better. Alright. Stream probably won't be super long tonight. I do have some other stuff that needs done before I can head for work. Well, head for work. I work out of my own house. My office is right over there. In the same room as me, you know. It's a desk with my work computer, and it's got my tank that once contained my land lobsters. Sadly, all of my pillbugs have passed on, ceased to be, joined the choir immortal, however you want to phrase it. They're all dead. Am planning to get some more later, but it's really like, do I want to get more by going outside and overturning a few pieces of wood to find some underneath? Or do I want to actually, like, pay money and have actual healthy specialty colored pill bugs shipped to my house. I don't know yet, haven't decided, and that's why the pill bug tank remains, well, mostly empty. It's got one dead pill bug that I was trying to coax through and keep him alive, but it didn't work. His corpse is sitting in there, on top of the little bit of paper that I always used to soak with water to provide them something to drink, because apparently that's how they prefer to drink. They don't, I mean, that and from their food. Apparently they eat paper though, so it worked as a double thing. There was also other food in there. Don't think I was just trying to feed my pill bug. Trying to feed my pill bug nothing but paper and water. No, there was fish food, because apparently that's what you feed them if you are a professional breeder. So some fish food and some eggshell and some cuttlebone, because apparently they really need calcium to help build that armor that they wear. So, you want to make certain they have plenty of options for that. And you also, I would toss in some rotting vegetation, because they are detrivores. That's what they basically live on, is rotten decay. But I also didn't want them eating things that could potentially make them sick, so it was basically let's toss in a few kitchen scraps, and then the minute they start developing mold, okay, those kitchen scraps go to the trash, and they get something else. So, I might have overdone it on my thread that I'm using. I might have made it a little too long because it keeps trying to bunch up on me, but that is just a thing that'll happen sometimes, and I'm not too bothered by it, so I'm willing to just untangle it as needed periodically, as long as I don't get an actual knot that prevents me from using thread, because that's always annoying when that happens. I'm still using the blanket stitch, just like I almost always do. Can't help it, it's a really good stitch. It's very useful for the kinds of things that I make. Alright. So we've got this part done. Now we're going to twist it around this way. I also have a lot more fabric than I need, because I don't want to bother with cutting it until I've reached the point where I need to cut it. Which is going to be, as you can see, pretty quick, because it covers almost his whole torso, and I want part of that torso to not be covered. So we're just going to get it around to the back again, and ooh, I like that. If I pull it tight, you can see his bones. So I think I'm going to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold these ends under, and kind of double it up a little bit, because by folding it under one, it makes it shorter. Gotta be careful I don't destroy my thread as I'm doing this. But I fold it under. That one makes it shorter, so I can still leave that portion blank. And two, it hides all of those ugly, cruddy little thread ends. Alright. Which admittedly, I'm going to have some of them still exposed. I just don't want it to be a lot of them. So, here we go. Got it folded over all the way back to where the ribs meet the body and grab my hold on. Oh, just a touch. So we're going to be sewing back the direction we just came from. So under, through, and these stitches are going to be a bit more prominent from the outside, but that's okay, because again, our Deady Bear is made with love, but he is not made perfectly. So obviously a very loving, but not necessarily very skilled parent or sibling or grandparent was involved in the crafting of our Deady Bear. And I mean, I talk about it being skilled, but you know what? I'm not exactly skilled, and I'm still doing it, and so it doesn't really matter how skilled or not you are with the task, as long as you're doing it out of love or enjoyment or, you know, gruesome as this Deady Bear is, I bet that if he were made for an actual child by the parent or grandparent or aunt or uncle or whoever loved them enough to go to the amount of effort required to, in this case, kill and skin a bear and then take his skeleton to make the Deady Bear, I think that I would be pretty, you know, I would feel very loved by knowing that they had gone to all that effort for me. Kids, based on my experience, care a lot more about you showing the effort and the time it took, or the amount of love that had to be put into the task, than say how much it actually cost. Like, yeah, I'll occasionally hear from other parents who are like, man, my kids, they only care about how much money I spent on X, Y, or Z. And I can't really relate on that, because my kids, it's never been their big thing. Now, do they want me to just go down to like Dollar Tree to buy their Christmas presents? No. But, you know, they would honestly rather get something that's less expensive but shows I actually listen to their interests and what they like, than that I just throw money at them, you know. Like, but maybe that's because my kids are used to the fact that, you know, for most of their lives we've had very little money that we could spend on toys and gifts. And so a lot of the stuff I've given them over the years has been handmade. And they know, because they've seen me making things, just how much time and effort goes into that. And I mean, am I saying that the parents whose kids don't really value things that are handmade, they just want expensive things? Am I saying those parents did something wrong? No. Am I saying those kids did something wrong? No. But I'm saying that it's, you know, they had a different circumstance than my kids did. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with having been raised in different circumstances. It knotted up on me, by the way. That's what all this futzing around is. Hold on just a few. Let's see. I might have to cut this. And I really would prefer not to. So, let's see if I can't work this knot out. I need one of those little technical difficulties things. I don't like using the Be Right Back, but I might have to on this if I have to go get my scissors. Because, of course, I thought I was being so smart by making my thread really, really long, because, you know, then I won't have to worry about scissors, and I can leave my scissors over at the desk, and yeah, I think I'm going to have to cut this, so bear with me, I'll be back shortly. Okay. I have my scissors. And I'm going to see how far back I can go before cutting. Because if I can avoid it, I'd like to. The answer is not very, but fine. We'll snip that little bit. And okay. Of course, it's on the part that was attached to the teddy bear. Couldn't have been on the other end. No, it could have been. Okay, that's fine. I just need to join my ends together again. Pick up where I left off. what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to tie this. Nope. Eek. Okay. There we go. So yeah, I'm gonna need to tie. Ow! Well, I just managed to stab myself in the stomach with a needle. So go me, I'm doing a great job today. I'm gonna cut some of this back. Toss that over there. There, now I have a much easier thing to tie with. Problem with having to tie two different string ends together is neither of them wants to hold still particularly well. Now I'm going to make my life easier, and instead of trying to sew those in from the inside, I'm going to sew over them from the outside. So same way we were working originally, but this time we're just making certain we go over. Are you freaking kidding me? Hold on. Nope. I literally just untied this. There we go. Let's try that again. Managed to get it loose. So, hooray. No, not there. Right. Back to work. And I'm just keeping a finger on these thread ends to make it handy for me to sew over them. But it's actually a pretty easy thing to do. So, and then once I've sewn them down for a decent length, I'll do what's called tacking. which is just go over them a little bit more, and then I can cut any loose ends. And hey, it adds to the kind of gruesome looking, these look like poorly done stitches after like a surgery or something. Our Deady bear is looking amazing. It's funny how much faster projects go when you're working on the larger. I mean, it's not surprising at all. Like, if you're working on larger pieces, therefore it's going to go faster because you're, covering more area with every bit you sew on. But it still feels weird to have it suddenly go from, oh god, this is tiny, delicate stitches and it's taking forever and I will never be done, to, okay, I'm almost done with this section here and I've barely even done anything. Okay. You know what? I might not tack down these ends properly. I might leave those loose stitches just to kind of add to the feel of the project. That and I'm lazy. Not afraid to admit that. I mean, it's not even that I'm lazy. It's that I prefer to prioritize my time. Like, I only have so much time to do things. And if I want you guys to see the end result before before October ends, that means I can't be too fussed about minor details. Especially since I've got other crafts I want to do this month. So yeah, I might end up being a bit lackadaisical on Deady Bear. Promise. He's still going to look amazing. I'd love it if I could get him mostly sewn in this week. And then next week I can start on the parts like painting. Because I do want to paint some gore onto him, just on the exposed bone bits. I did use the fabric paints to paint his organs, so there's that. But there's more that I want to get done. Phone, why are you beeping at me? Alright. We're now at his hip on the other side. So we started at the hip on one side, and we've gone all the way across to the other side. You can see that dark black row of stitches. So we're just continuing around his hip on this side. It is going to get a little awkward because I don't want his leg joined all the way. So I am going to have to start dipping his ribs inward to make certain that I'm not sewing the outside of his ribs to the outside of his legs. But it shouldn't be too difficult. I just have to go in a bit on the leg with each stitch. And if you notice, that's actually a pretty easy thing to do. So, I don't know how well you guys can see it, but if I just dip my thread in between the hip and the leg, I can pick up that fabric and not get the parts I don't want of it. In fact, I'm having to go a little further down than I originally wanted, because if I don't, you know what I'm doing? I'm picking up the very edge of the fabric of his leg, and that could result in just ripping those stitches right through the fabric end, and we'd have lots of fraying, and it wouldn't be a very strong connection. So by going inward but not going as far inward as I initially intended, we're still getting a strong fabric connection. And then I do want to fold that up a bit. Let's see. I'm going to use the ends of my scissors, not the tip, but one of these ends here to tuck the fabric of his belly upwards. Again, so that it stays nice and tight like I wanted it. Okay, out. Because you can, well, you guys really can't, because you guys don't, I don't know why this camera won't give me contrast, unless, like, it does fine on photos. Not a problem at all. But for some odd reason, if I'm doing a video, it just does not want to give me contrast at all. Oh well. Sylvie. Okay. I also keep accidentally stabbing the plastic, but I'm not too worried about this needle getting damaged, broken, etc., because honestly, this needle is from that kit that a friend of mine found along the curbside. It was just one of the random needles in there, so I'm not too worried about it. It's not like a super special fancy needle or anything like that. I mean, none of my needles are super special fancy needles. Who are we kidding? Do I have any super special fancy anything? Actually, I do, but not sewing needles. That's like my calligraphy pens. Okay. But yeah, we are getting some good dark stitches here that are going to absolutely help with the horrifying feel, almost zombie-ish or monster-ish, Frankenstein-ish feel of the Deady bear. We are also coming around the front, and then once we get to the front, I'm going to continue that line of stitches all the way around the front. We'll just drop that. I'm not going to sew the gut bag into that line of stitches, though. The gut bag needs to at least be partially removable, because I can pull it out or push it in depending on what I need for the project and how it needs to look. So that needs to stay loose and accessible. We are, however, getting to a portion that's going to be a bit more of a pain, because we are getting to the spot where the leg joins up with the ribs, and there's a much smaller space to work in to get to the leg. So I'm going to actually pull down the fabric of the leg to tighten it, because remember, we wanted it to look like a plushie that had lost some of its stuffing. I mean, obviously its guts are coming out. So I want that fabric to stay loose-ish on the leg, but not to the point where it's like falling out. And I might, note that might is a very definite term here. I might go back later and put some actual stuffing inside the leg. Only the leg, though. Maybe one of the arms when I get to that point. But we'll just have to see how that shakes out. Oh, he is coming together so nicely. I love it. I love it. What is it? I love when a plane comes together. Even if that plane is a grotesque mockery of a beloved childhood toy. Okay, let's face it. Especially if that plane is a grotesque mockery of a beloved childhood toy. And it's not that I hate kids or anything like that, or hate childhood as a concept. It's just, you know, when you're raised with a very, I'm not going to say puritanical, because it's not, but a very, trying to think of the best way to phrase this. When you are raised with a ideology that basically implies that children are to be protected and sheltered and should never be shown the ills of the world, and that they are unprepared for the ills of the world. Well, you're going to have people like me who take offense to that. Because when I was a kid, I would have much rather been exposed to more of the ills of the world so that I could be better prepared for the world as it is. This is not to say that I was completely sheltered. My parents did some things that I wish they hadn't, such as calling me as a fairly young child in and making me watch Schindler's List. Because they wanted me to recognize the reality of the Holocaust, because they were correct that at some point in my life there would be people who tried to deny that the Holocaust happened. Now, the only reason why I wish that they had not done that is I wish that they had waited until I was a little bit older, and that there had been a little more explanation of what it was that had happened and why it was being depicted on screen. Instead of basically being shown Schindler's List and told this is all real, without the real context of what it was a depiction of. So yeah, Schindler's List, good thing to show kids. Maybe not at 6 years old. But c'est la vie. My parents did what they thought was best, and I do think it's better for me to have been shown that somewhat traumatizing film, even if it was earlier than I should have been, than to let me grow up with the potential thinking that Holocaust wasn't real, it didn't happen. Because they were definitely right about that there would be people out there in the world who would try to say it didn't. or who would try to soften it, as it were. You know, because there are. And there are definitely people in the world today who are still suffering repercussions from, or, well, suffering from the trauma involved in that whole period. Even if it's not the people who were actually in the concentration camps and survived, there's still people who are suffering because of the trauma that their parents went through, their grandparents. Generational trauma is very much a big and real thing. I was actually explaining to one of my sons that part of the reason why he always feels the need to eat before going to bed is due to the fact that I always feel the need to eat before bed. I can't sleep on an empty stomach. And I get that from my grandmother, who lived through the Great Depression. Because she went through the Great Depression, and there have been studies done that show that the Great Depression actually literally changed the DNA of those who suffered through it. And so that change to the DNA led to changes in the DNA of their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And yeah, may seem weird, the idea that something that happened 100 years ago could have changed something today, even on such a small scale as whether or not people can go to bed without having something in their stomach. But it did. Because generational trauma is still trauma, and trauma has lasting effects that ripple down through the ages. We are getting to the awkward part of this foot now. Where it is getting harder and harder to do the blanket stitch. Okay. However, I am reaching the point where I can stitch the leg and the body together, just like I did on the other end. Also, apologies for the sirens you're hearing in the background. The weather is nice enough. I have my windows open. And I happen to live very, very close to the fire station. So, anytime they get a call, we know. But I would much rather live close to them and hear those sirens than that people's houses burned down because there were no sirens. Or that that the protection not be there. And just a reminder, despite the fact that all cops are bastards, firemen are your friends. There are very few situations where firemen are also bastards, but those are, again, very few and far between, and a lot of those have far more to do with local politics than they do with the firemen themselves. You'll occasionally hear the stories of people who their city had implemented a special tax And if you didn't pay that tax, then the firemen would come out to your house, but they would not actually put out any fires at your house. They would simply ensure that your neighbor's house didn't burn down. And that's sickening and disgusting, but that is not the fault of the firemen. That is the fault of the city politics that resulted in that rule being placed. So, and I'm sure it was actually pretty rough for the firemen to watch people's house burn down without doing anything to stop it, because that's what firemen are there for. That's what they want to be doing, is putting out fires and protecting people's properties. You don't get a job as a fireman unless you want to be doing that stuff. Okay. So Deady Bear is making progress. We're going to go ahead and do a little bit. We're going to go up this seam, then seam this part together, and we're going to go over to his sternum. And when we hit the sternum, we're going to stop there on this side. Just got another notification. Hold on just a second. Okay. Sorry, having to keep an eye on things the way I always have to. I am, however, running out of thread, so I need to tie this off with my usual method and then get more thread. I do have a project that will be very fun but will not be shown on stream coming up, and that is my next door neighbor, who is a wonderful person, member of the neighborhood watch, etc., etc., carpenter by trade. He also is a avid gardener and has a fabulous pear tree in his yard. But this year that pear tree went all out with production, and he has more pears than he can even hope to deal with. So he has suggested that I take a few of those pears off his hands, which I did, and I will be making pear butter. Similar process to apple butter, just using pears instead. But I have 2 5-gallon buckets full of windfall pears, and I need to go through those buckets, find what's ripe now versus what is needing to ripen still, and then take the pears that are ripe, wash them, cut them. If I have 4 pounds of them already, great, I can get started with an immediate batch of pear butter. If I do not, then what I'll have to do is I will have to freeze the ones that are ripe, because I don't want them to get to the point of being overripe. And then once I have the others have ripened enough, and I can have 4 pounds of ripe pear, fresh or frozen, either way, it does not matter with pear butter, then I will be making lots and lots of pear butter, and it will be amazing. I'm decently good at excuse me, threading needles. I have an actual needle threader. I know where it is. I just never think to use it or never think to grab it. I use it more when working with thicker things like thread for denim, because denim is very thick and you need a very thick needle, and you tend to need a fairly thick thread. But this is just basic cotton thread that's very thin. I don't really need a big needle for it, so I'm just kind of threading it like normal. Now, since I did have to switch thread and I had to cut the old one, I'm not going to go back up that side like I was planning to. I'm just going to start fresh at the join. So that actually shortens the amount of work I have to do. Which, of course, if you know me, I love shorter work. Yes, please. So, we are again going to fold over the fabric. And this one we get the leisure of starting from the inside. Now, we won't get to keep doing that, but at least for this first little bit, we can start from the inside and therefore hide that end, which of course wanted to poke around the side, so we're going to have to tuck that back under and pull this loose bit of thread or fabric, scrap, whatever. Okay, tucked under, and here we go. It's going to be from the outside again mostly, not from the inside. But, like I've said before, I do think that adds to the appearance of the Deady Bear. So I'm not too fussed about it. The more Frankensteinian the bear looks, the better, honestly. No. You're not nodding up. Thank you. I think once I have reached the sternum with this piece, we're going to stop for now. It's been almost an hour. By that point, we should hit an hour, so well, maybe. I don't know. I might fold stuff back and go back the other way to the arm, but we'll see. I have not entirely decided how I'm going to do the arms, because the hands are so big that I can't really do what I did with the feet. Ouch. Where I just, made a tube and then slipped it on. The hands are going to prevent that because they are very big hands. So I might have to actually sew the body around the hands. We'll just have to see how that goes. I'm also trying to keep from going too far with the needle because the feet definitely get in the way when I try to do the wrap over. For the blanket stitch. See, the hands are also going to get in the way of me pulling the thread through. I did figure out, by the way, what I'm going to do for the tail on my costume for Halloween. Because I really couldn't find something that was a proper tail. But I can make one pretty easily. All it really takes is a pair of black pantyhose and a pair of scissors to cut them into two, and then some good old-fashioned fiber fill. So, my Char Necromancer will have a proper tail. This feels a lot like the Bone Fairy project I did last year, in the fact that it is taking up a lot more time than I'd originally anticipated, but it is also coming together really well and looks really good. Last year I had a lot more time to play around. I was out of work, so I had a lot more time to do these streams. I wasn't having to go, okay, I've got to finish by X time, which is coming up pretty close actually, so that I have time to get stuff done before work, etc., etc., etc. I did get approval for taking Halloween night off, so I will not have to worry about missing out on the festivities, and I will not have to worry about being exhausted when working, if I do attend the festivities. So, that will be very nice. Halloween is absolutely my favorite holiday, so I would like to take part. I had to miss it the year before. Okay. So I was out of work, and money was really tight, 2021. 2020, I was working, but I was working from home, and so didn't really, I couldn't participate in the office celebration, which is what I'd done the year before. In fact, the year before was amazing because I managed to get my coworkers at my job to participate too, and we did a group costume where we all dressed up together. Well, not all of us, but a set group of us dressed up together, and we got pictures together, and it was amazing. 2018, I was actually at the job that I'm currently at, just before I, left to bigger and better things, as it were. And you know what? I bet if I just tuck and pull and tighten, I bet if I cut a dart in that, I can do that. Yeah, we're just gonna... I had an epiphany, sorry. But yeah, 2018... so 2019 was my last Halloween in the office with coworkers around that I could participate with, and we dressed up as the crew from A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. I dressed as Red Herring. We had one of my coworkers. It was an amazing coincidence. I had not found anybody to play Shaggy, but I had found someone to play Velma. I had found someone to play Daphne. I had found someone to play Fred. And I happened to have this coworker who was tall and kind of shaggy headed and, you know, skinny, very skinny. And so I finally, I went, hey, would you be willing to dress up as Shaggy for this group costume we're doing for Halloween? And he stares at me for a few, and he goes, how did you know? And I go, what? No, what? What did I know? Turned out that he used to be an employee at whichever Disney is in California. Or maybe it was the one at Florida. I don't know. But while he was there as an employee, his job was to dress up as Shaggy and drive the Mystery Machine around in the parades. And so it was entirely happenstance. I just, I had no clue. I had just thought, hey, he's tall and skinny. I bet this will be perfect. So he was our Shaggy and was such a good sport, he actually brought a Scooby-Doo plush that day that we were all dressed up together. And another friend of the friend that was Velma happened to have kids who ate the Scooby-Doo Scooby Snacks graham crackers, and so she had brought a box of those. And so we have pictures of me as Red Herring punching Fred in the face, while Shaggy stood nearby munching down on Scooby Snacks, and Velma had the Scooby plushie in her arms, and Daphne was looking appropriately horrified at Fred being punched. And it was just such a great experience. So fun to work together on a costume with my coworkers, The year before that, my costume had been a solo effort, but it was still really fun because I dressed up as a punk unicorn, and I got a shirt, a black t-shirt, and I did a iron-on transfer print of a zombie unicorn, and I had gotten a skeletal unicorn earring, and I had made my own mane and tail, and I had woven fake chains into the tail, and so it was definitely me, let's phrase it that way. And then the year before that, I was delivering pizzas, and so my costume that year was to I got all of the accoutrements to make myself into a zombie, and then I got permission from my boss to wear a white t-shirt under my button-up pizza delivery company shirt, and to wear the shirt open, and so I covered the shirt with fake blood and stuff, and then wore that to work, and as I delivered pizzas, I would show up at people's doors and be, pizza! Very zombie. The little kids that I was delivering to loved it. They thought it was the best thing ever, having their pizza delivered by a zombie. So if you can tell, I really do get into Halloween. I love Halloween. Again, my favorite holiday. So I need to go about another ½ inch with what I've got, at which point I can join this shoulder, and I guess it's going to be part of the arm, to the back, so it can hold things in place a bit better. And then I'll need to cut some darts to get the rest. But we are definitely making progress. The head is going to be my primary focus next week, so I'm probably not going to show you guys the cutting the darts and all of that. It's not super important. If I just folded stuff over and around, I wouldn't need to worry about the darts anyway, so I can really just skip showing you guys that part on stream. But the head, I suspect, is going to be a bit more complex, so I do want to show you guys that. Right, now pull this over and tuck there. And I think I'm going to go across the back with more of the black stitching. He is coming together really well, though. I'm loving this. Yeah, I think I'm going to do one more of these to really pull that shoulder a bit more tight. And I'm going to stop the thread from getting caught on the ears. There we go. Alright, so we're getting there. We're making progress. We still have his little guts hanging out the bottom. He is looking fabulous. I love it. Alright, so for right now, we're going to end our stream. I do want to thank those who came out tonight to watch. Hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching me working on the Deady Bear. I am definitely having a blast putting him together, even as I'm getting covered in little bits of yarn or thread. But I do want to thank you guys again for coming out. Hope that you guys all stay safe this week. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I'll be back next Saturday with another gaming stream. But I'll see you next time.